Everyone knows this feeling. You wake up in the morning with a clear idea of what you should do. Maybe it's writing that first page, making that difficult phone call, finally cleaning the cluttered room, or hitting the gym. You nod to yourself. I've got this. And then, hours pass. Nothing. Maybe you scroll, snack, watch productive content, maybe even feel inspired, but the core thing remains untouched. Again, and by evening, the frustration returns. That quiet, sharp self-loathing that says, you know, better. Why didn't you act? But this isn't laziness. It's not even procrastination in the usual sense. It's something deeper and more painful, the split between who you are and who you're trying to become. It's internal sabotage. See, most people assume they don't act because they lack motivation or energy or knowledge. But the truth is more psychological. You don't act because doing so threatens your current identity. The brain isn't just wired for success, it's wired for familiarity. And action is dangerous because it implies change. Let's say you've always seen yourself as the shy one or the one who always struggles to stay disciplined. You've built years of proof around this story. Then suddenly you want to change careers, build a body, or speak up more. Seems harmless, right? But to your unconscious mind, that's death. Because if you follow through, you no longer fit the old mold. You're rewriting your role, and that's terrifying. So your brain defends the old self. Not with loud resistance, but subtle sabotage. It whispers, let's just do it tomorrow. You're not ready. You don't feel it yet. Just watch one more video first. And the worst part? These whispers sound like you. They wear your voice. That's what makes them convincing. You don't fail to act because you're weak. You fail to act because part of you believes staying the same is safer than growing, even if same means misery. Here's the trap. You think that when the moment is right, you'll feel ready. That some spark of motivation will kick in, some final piece will click, and suddenly you'll act. But that moment rarely comes. And even if it does, it passes. Like a breeze. You're left where you started, knowing, but not doing. The truth? Readiness is a lie your brain tells you to justify delay. Action creates readiness. Not the other way around. What's really happening is this. Your nervous system is scanning for danger. And danger, for it, doesn't mean predators or cliffs. Anymore, it means emotional discomfort, rejection, uncertainty, embarrassment, shame, and the things you know you need to do often involve some version of those feelings. Sending the message, saying no, starting the thing, and risking failure. These actions feel like threats to your survival, even if logically you know they're not, so your body flinches away. It numbs you with distraction, fatigue, or a sudden obsessive need to research the best strategy before you start. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding the emotional discomfort attached to it. That's the real avoidance. Not the email, but the fear behind the email. Not the gym, but the shame of being seen as a beginner. Not the creation, but the terror of being misunderstood. And until you understand this, you'll keep fighting yourself. You'll think your problem is discipline. You'll think you need better planning or more willpower. But those are surface tools. You don't need better productivity hacks. You need courage. Because deep change doesn't come from stronger routines. It comes from emotional honesty. The ability to say, this scares me, but I'm going to show up anyway. That's the moment your life starts to shift. When you stop trying to trick yourself into action and instead walk into the resistance. On purpose. The real path forward begins when you stop asking, why can't I do this? And instead ask, what part of me is afraid of what comes next if I succeed? Let's talk about the hidden contract you've made with yourself. You might not be aware of it, but it runs everything. This contract says, I will only take action when I feel good, confident, and clear. And because those conditions rarely align, you remain stuck, waiting for the perfect emotional weather that never arrives. But here's the hard truth. If you want to change your life, you have to be willing to act while feeling like shit, while uncertain, while afraid, while doubting yourself. Especially then. This is why knowledge alone doesn't change us. You can watch 100 motivational videos, read all the right books, and understand your patterns inside out. But awareness without action leads to self-contempt. You become a person who knows what to do, but still doesn't do it. And that gap breeds quiet misery. The wider the gap between your potential and your behavior, the more painful it becomes to live with yourself. That's the real cost of inaction. Not just missed goals, but a fractured relationship with your own integrity. Start to lose trust in yourself. And when you don't trust yourself, life feels heavier. Everything becomes harder because you doubt your own word. You say, I'll start tomorrow, but you don't believe it. You promise, this time will be different, but part of you rolls your eyes. The solution isn't to punish yourself. It's to begin rebuilding trust in micro ways. It means keeping tiny promises, doing one push-up instead of none, writing 100 words instead of a whole chapter, having 5 minutes of discomfort instead of none. Small acts of courage build the muscle that eventually carries big actions. Your mind resists change, not because you're broken, but because it's protecting you from perceived pain. But the longer you delay facing that pain, the bigger and more mythical it becomes. You start believing the story that you're just not a disciplined person or not meant for this. But no one is born disciplined. People become powerful by choosing small acts of discomfort daily. And every time you do that, even once, you rewrite the contract. You start proving to yourself, I don't need to feel perfect to move forward. There's something important you need to hear. You don't have a motivation problem. You have a conflict problem. Deep inside, there's a tug of war between the version of you that wants to grow and the version of you that wants to stay safe. And both of them make good arguments. The growing part says, we need to change. We're stuck. This isn't working anymore. The surviving part says, but we know this. This is familiar. This is safe. So you hesitate. You plan. You overthink. You loop. That internal war exhausts you. And because it's happening subconsciously, you start blaming yourself for being tired, distracted, inconsistent. But this isn't laziness. It's emotional friction. You're using all your energy managing the tension of not acting. To move forward, something has to give. One part of you must surrender. And here's the catch. The cost of real growth is always the death of something you've identified with. That might be your need to be liked, your belief that you're not good enough, your story that things need to be perfect before you start, your role as the reliable one, or the quiet one, or the always in control one. It hurts to let go of those identities, even if they're limiting you, because they've kept you emotionally safe. That's why you freeze when you're close to change. Not because you're weak, but because you're afraid of who you might become without your usual patterns. You're not just procrastinating, you're mourning the safety of who you used to be. But here's where things shift, when you realize that staying where you are also costs you something. Comfort isn't free. It drains your energy, your dreams, your time. You just don't see the invoice until it's too late. Every time you delay, you're choosing to protect your current identity at the expense of your future self. You're choosing short-term comfort over long-term freedom. And over time, this creates a quiet inner grief, the kind that comes not from failure, but from knowing you never really tried. But this doesn't have to be your story. You can make a different choice, even today, not even now. So here you are. You've read, watched, listened, journaled. You know the habits that would change your life. You know the conversations you need to have. You know the things you need to quit and the things you need to start. But still, you're stuck in place. And here's the paradox. There will never be a day where you suddenly feel ready. No lightning strike of confidence. No perfect alignment of clarity and motivation. Readiness doesn't come before action. It's a byproduct of it. That's why the people who change their lives aren't always the smartest, most capable, or even most disciplined. They're simply the ones who stopped waiting for the perfect feeling. They acted anyway. They understood this principle. Action isn't the reward for clarity. It's the creator of it. You won't feel clear until you move. You won't feel confident until you speak. You won't feel strong until you struggle. That means the only real way to break the loop of inaction is to interrupt it. Do one uncomfortable thing. Make one non-negotiable. Set one tiny rule. It might feel so small, it seems meaningless, but that's your old identity trying to protect itself. Because real transformation doesn't happen through epiphany. It happens through small acts of rebellion against who you used to be. The moment you start acting without waiting to feel ready, your brain takes notice. It starts rewriting the map. And when your brain realizes you're the kind of person who acts despite discomfort, the loop starts to break. You begin to trust yourself. That trust creates momentum. And momentum, even small, is what turns knowing into doing. So if you're here, nodding along, feeling this in your bones, take this as your sign. No more waiting. No more negotiating. No more saying, I'll start Monday, or when I'm less tired, or after I feel better. You don't need to change everything at once. You just need to break the loop once. And then again tomorrow. Because the difference between the life you have and the life you want isn't more information. It's more courageous action. And you're capable of that. Right now. Right here. No more waiting.